Hello and welcome to another video focusing on Bannerlord and the latest dev blog, which has literally just been released as far as I can tell. And this one is focusing on campaign AI. And I thought this was actually a pretty interesting thing to focus on, at least for a small video. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through here and we're just going to take a look at what they've actually said in the campaign AI dev blog, and then I'll give you my thoughts after that. The continent of Calradia is a hive of activity, from small bandit parties preying on merchant caravans to huge armies embarking on campaigns. Bannerlord's dynamic sandbox campaign presents players with an ever-changing, albeit hostile, medieval world. And no matter if players directly involve themselves in unfolding events or if they simply watch on, the kingdoms, clans, and lords vying for power press on with their own ambitions and goals in mind. Sounds fantastic, right? Definitely going to love the new aspects of the campaign AI. I assume they're going to be expanding upon what they actually do, because in Warband, campaign AI doesn't really do that much in changing the AI's decision-making abilities. Campaign AI, all it does is basically give the AI more money and, as a result, higher quality troops. Anyway, in this week's blog, we take a look at one aspect of Bannerlord's campaign AI that helps to support this idea of a living, breathing world, ensuring that lords make sensible choices and prioritize their actions on the campaign map in a logical way that accounts for their abilities, limitations, and needs. Just like the player, NPC lords spend much of their time traversing the campaign map as they go about their business, and unlike our previous game, Mount and Blade Warband, in Bannerlord, NPC lords are bound by many of the same restrictions and rules of the player. Oh, that's actually really good. Nice change. I love having that kind of gameplay. I know that a number of other games have done similar things, and to bring it to a world like Bannerlord or like Mount and Blade in general, that's going to be really exciting. This change in approach to NPC parties means that we needed to ensure that NPC lords not only create and react to events in the world, but can also perform many of the actions that players are required to do to maintain their party and ultimately progress through the game. And I would assume that means getting food, recruiting from villages, actually physically recruiting from villages, not just magically bringing them out of a town or something along those lines. Maybe they're going to do that. We'll see. To find an appropriate solution, we first had to consider the different factors that would be important when making these kinds of decisions. The first and only consistent factor across all possible actions is the distance that the party would need to travel to perform the action. Naturally, the NPC Lord will generally favor closer targets, providing its requirements can be met, of course. In addition to this, the NPC Lord will also look at several other factors when deciding which action to select and how to carry that action out. So I would assume that the action, I'm going to just use an example here, the action that the NPC Lord might want to take is potentially recruiting some new volunteers after being defeated. So what is he going to do? He's going to go to the nearest village, just like a player would. You know, you're going to go to the nearest village to your current position. And then, if you have enough money, hopefully he has enough money at this point, then, yep, here we go. So this is the first thing. Going to the settlement. NPC lords will need to visit settlements to restock their supplies, recruit fresh troops, and ransom prisoners, exactly like I said there. Lords may also decide to visit a settlement, especially if it is one of their own, if they have been out in the field for some time. After all, even NPCs deserve a little rest and recuperation. If a friendly settlement looks to be threatened, an NPC lord may decide to lend their support to the settlement to try and dissuade the enemy from attacking, or if need be, defend it. Alright, sounds good. Sounds good so far. And then they can also patrol around a settlement. If a party's needs have been met and there aren't any other pressing matters to attend to, NPC lords will lead their troops on a patrol around their clan's settlements, prioritizing ones where hostile troops have been spotted in the vicinity or recently. Okay, interesting. Very good. Well, that's basically what they do right now, but of course it is a little bit different in the way that they recruit things. That's the point. If the NPC lords are going to be doing relatively similar things to the player, that is going to give the player so much more strategic and tactical options on dealing with enemies as well. So if you have an enemy that you have consistently come up against, and he's like your mortal enemy in that particular campaign, and you want to stop him even further. I mean, I don't know whether they are going to be introducing executions or being able to kill enemy lords and completely remove them from the game, but if they are, then, well, that might be an opportunity when the NPC lord is going to recruit new units. Anyway, NPC lords will ride to the defensive settlements when the need arises, either with just their party in tow or at the head of an army. If the besieged settlement is particularly prosperous or is owned by the NPC lord, then they will be much more likely to make an effort to defend the settlement. That makes sense. Wars aren't won on the defensive, and under the right circumstances, they can be quite fruitful. NPC lords, given the opportunity, will try to get in on the action. When looking at enemy settlements, the lord will check to see how valuable the production of the settlement is, as well as the strength of the settlement. In addition to this, the lord will consider the relations between their clan and that of the owner of the settlement, favoring to attack ones that they are feuding with. Finally, a lord may decide to raid a settlement that is providing supplies to a connected castle, with the castle being the true target of the action. Very smart. That's actually a very, very nice thing for them to do, because let's say you want to raid, or shall we say besiege, I don't know, Nadar Castle, or some castle that is in Warband, and well, what are they going to do? They're going to raid the nearby village. And yeah, the lords in Warband actually do that to a certain extent, but I wouldn't say that they do that on a kind of smart basis. I think they probably just raid whatever they can. But anyway, besiege a settlement. NPC lords will try to lay siege to enemy castles when they are confident that they can succeed with the attack. While looking for a suitable target, Warband veterans will be pleased to hear that one factor that is checked is the proximity of the targeted castle to their own faction's territory. Ah yes, that's a wonderful change, which should help reduce the chances of those crazy expeditions deep into enemy territory to capture a castle they have little chance of holding on to. In addition to this, the strength of the castle is looked at in relation to the Lord's party strength, the prosperity of the castle, as well as any enemy parties that are known to be in that region at the time. Alright, that's great. That is really nice to see, because let's face it, you don't really want, let's say you're the liege of your own faction and you have a number of vassals, and let's say you have 5 of them, and all 5 decide to completely abandon their posts to go on a campaign because you've given the marshalship to one of your guys, and he's like your right-hand man, so to speak, and he decides, okay, I'm going to go very deep into Saranid territory, of course I'm talking about Warband here, and I'm going to raid, I don't know, Decuba or something like that. I'm going to raid one of those towns all the way down in the south, and it's just not making that much sense. So it's really nice that they have changed that. The final aggressive action that an NPC lord can pursue is to chase down enemy parties. If the enemy party is already being chased down, then the lord may decide to safely ignore a particular party. However, if a hostile force is considered to be encroaching within the lord's faction's territory, especially if they advance near to a settlement, then the lord may decide to give chase. However, with that being said, a lord won't foolishly chase after a party that it knows to be faster than their own, at least not for an extended period. Finally, if an enemy's party's clan has low relations with the lord's clan, then they might be seen as more of a desirable target that is worth giving chase to. Alright, well that makes sense as well. We've seen that time and time again in Warband, where you will be able to lure particular parties. Specifically, I'm talking about various mods in Warband. Most specifically, I'm talking about Prophecy of Pendor, where you have these unique spawns, very, very powerful parties that are capable of a lot of destruction. But if you have a party that's capable of dealing with them, or if they are weakened, you will be rewarded greatly for defeating them. And this is a relatively similar thing where luring and indeed baiting enemy parties into a bad situation is probably going to be quite doable, because as you can see, they're not going to chase for an extended period, but they will chase for a little bit of time. So we'll see how that goes. And this, as you can see, this is actually a siege. And this is the UI that you're going to see in Bannerlord as well. But this is a siege that's currently going on. Very exciting, isn't it? Because you actually get to see a number of the parties that are currently involved in the siege. And then you have the garrison at the very top there, which I think is very cool, because as you can see, you can blatantly tell how many defenders they have, and you can also tell how many attackers are with you. So it's much easier to be able to see who is going to have the advantage. Of course, this is not really taking into account the layout of the castle, how well defensible it is or anything like that, but that's not what I'm particularly wanting to highlight here. Anyway, point is, I'm liking everything that's going on this screen so far. And as you can see, these are Sturgian lords gathering to break the siege at Ustakal Castle. And that's it for 2019. We will be back in the new year with more blogs and details about Bannerlord's early access in March. Yeah, so go and follow them if you want to. But yeah, I'm very much loving everything that they're talking about here in terms of campaign AI. I think that basically having more of an idea as to what AI lords are going to be doing, and doing more of what they can to not magically recruit units. That's one of the biggest pet peeves that I think a lot of people that played Warband have, because if you play with, let's say you have campaign AI on the highest level in Warband, well, what are you going to get? Basically a never-ending stream of units coming out, at least in the late game. And it's going to be extremely difficult for you to be able to dislodge any particular garrison. It is doable, definitely doable, but it is very frustrating in the meantime. And I'm hopeful that in Bannerlord we can all play with campaign AI on the highest level without it being extremely tedious and frustrating to continually run into NPC lords that have a full party after only a few days in game after being defeated. Anyway, my thoughts on the campaign AI, very nice, 9 out of 10, very, very happy to see this. I'd like to see how it actually is going to work, because as I've said here about NPC lords needing to visit settlements to restock their supplies, recruit fresh troops, and ransom prisoners, I like that very much. I'm just wondering how it's going to be with them actually recruiting fresh troops. And they're saying settlements here, so settlements could mean castles, could mean towns, could mean villages. I'm hopeful that it will mean villages for the most part, because I would love to see a lord running around to all these villages and recruiting to try and get back his army. I don't know how it's really going to go with how they train their units as well. I'd like to know how they are going to train recruits up, whether it's just going to be a trainer skill thing, or whether it's just going to be a passive experience that they're going to gain dependent on how much campaign AI is there, because it might very well be dependent on what the player chooses on their campaign AI. Anyway, that's going to be it for this small video about the new settings and how they're going to, how the lords are going to react to it. And if you'd like to see more of these Let's Talk Bannerlord videos, then by all means let me know. Otherwise, I thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.